Everyone, Ray Rickman, as he does every Thursday, comes and gives his big view here at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We appreciate his taking the time to come in and share his perspective. I'd like to welcome in now Bob Whitcomb, who usually kicks off the hour. Appreciate it.
Kate, how are you?
So, did you hear
I've just been in the bar across the street.
Playing a little Keno at Tommy's. Did you catch any of the poll results, or are you going to catch up with that?
Not yet. I'm going to do that after I finish this column and put some stuff in my art website, my gallery website.
Well, I don't think I've ever checked your gallery website out before.
NewEnglandDiary.com.
Oh, that one. Of course I have. Yes.
The government keeps trying to close it.
Are you part of the Facebook probe of?
Well, actually, I was on the Kremlin side. They paid better.
Well, let's talk about what's coming up this weekend in your column. But, Mike, you've got your crib notes, but I have to start off with you from a media perspective. Yeah. With what is going on here this week at the Rhode Island State House with female legislators coming forward, that sort of Me Too.
I was surprised. Apparently this stuff has been going on for a long while. It's shades of Weinstein. And I didn't know anything about Weinstein. People in L.A. told me about this 20 years ago. You and I have talked about this. What's new?
So
the old casting couch.
The old casting couch. But here in Rhode Island, it came on the heels of Weinstein talking about the Me Too. But how's the media's role? We hear from these female legislators. I've reached out to Teresa Tanzi. We've had discussions.
She was sort of the. She started.
She had mentioned this, and again has sort of taken that step back and said, I'm really not going to name names at this point. For the press purpose, we heard from Kate Coyne-McCoy, who is a big Democratic organizer. Talked about the study commission, really poo-pooed it, and said, look, these are elected officials. Voters should know who's kind of promulgating this.
Well, I agree. At the
sexual harassment.
Same time as the workplace laws about this stuff, regulations and statutes, I think they should come, press, charges or something like that, rather than sort of whispering campaign. Press charges, which is, I think, what's going to happen with Mr. Weinstein. So rather than just sort of complaining about this environment where people are being apparently molested and harassed, I think there are laws that apply to these things. As you know, state laws, I think there's some federal laws too, and there's some civil rights laws. So I would hope they would have the gumption to, press ahead. If these things in fact are going on, I expect there's something to it.
And speaking of,
I've been in the state house. State houses.
I haven't been in the state house.
Actually, they're all kind of the same. All 50 of them.
What, power corrupts absolutely?
Yeah.
Well, people have asked about that. They said, it's sort of everyone's under that specter of, were you the one? Were you the one? What's the role of the press in this? As we continue to pay attention, listen to the women who are coming forward, offering the information that they are comfortable with sharing at this time. What I'm suspicious of, if you just sort of
suggest who it might be, I don't much like that. I'm not the one that's been harassed or molested or whatever, so it's easy for me to say, as a man. But I think what they should do is that the people who've been offended in this way should get together and, as a group, go to the law enforcement folks and make a formal charge. They may be difficult to provide certain kinds of proof, but they should take what they have to the police. This is a police issue, and certainly to the leadership, unless the leadership, the hyper leadership, is involved in this somehow, and certainly to the governor. The governor's got to be aware of it, and press charges. Otherwise, it's just this sort of gossiping campaign in which some people can be unfairly maligned. Well, people leap to the wrong conclusions. They may think it's legislature A, it's actually legislature H.
Well, we shall see. It was originally a local issue. We saw the reaction. Now we've seen sort of more regional and even national issue paid.
Right. I've heard of this in Massachusetts, this kind of thing happening, but again, there are laws that cover this stuff about the workplace, even if the workplace is politicians. Yeah. Are
you going to be opining on this weekend?
I don't know yet. Maybe not. I don't know if I know enough about it yet. I mean, I know you would say, well, how has that ever stopped you before?
Can't be a time with Bob Whitcomb in here without making me guffaw. You've got your crib notes of what you're looking to write about this weekend. So let's go down what people.
Yeah, I think first of all, Memorial Hospital, I think they have to close. It's a hospital, inpatient rooms. Only a very small number of the beds, they've got almost 300 beds there, are ever filled. It's been kept alive, I think, mostly for political reasons. It'll be a fine bunch of clinics and apartments and coffee shops and stuff like that. I think this is turning into a big issue because the jobs, which become a very political issue. So you've got almost 900
jobs.
800 GoLocal has covered this very well, 892, whatever it is. Well, almost all those people, if they are professionally educated in healthcare, will find jobs. We've got a great need for nurses, for nurse practitioners, for health aides, certainly for physicians, and I think the vast majority of those people who if they still want to work, unless they're very, very close to retirement, will find very little difficulty finding other jobs. It's part of a broader problem. We have too many hospitals.
That's my next question exactly.
Far too many.
How do we handle this? How do we address it? It's a very, as you mentioned several times in the last couple of minutes, a politically difficult issue.
That's right, very difficult.
To take the leadership helm and say, do you convene folks around the table? There's going to be some there could be unpopular decisions made, or we could see sort of the market dictate and sort of, instead of having a concerted effort about how to approach this, kind of let things.
Well, in the end, the market will dictate.
Yes.
There's a proliferation of home health, of urgent care centers, freestanding emergency rooms, all kinds of places like that where a lot of these people can work, frankly. Some of these drugstores, these minute clinics at CVS, I wouldn't be surprised to see primary care physicians working in some of these places. The other thing, Mary, a lot of stuff people go to hospital for surgeries. Well, as you know, more and more surgeries are done on an outpatient basis. Stuff that would have had you in the hospital for 2 weeks 20 or 30 years ago, you now go to this sort of surgery center, you're thrown out on the street in an hour. And that's the way things are going. People take statins to confront heart disease, which is certainly been a big help in alleviating that horror, which is far and away the biggest health threat, is heart disease.
So we'll see what happens moving forward on the hospital front. Yeah. What else is your
I said something about the Wexford project, the 192. I think it'll work. I think there's a critical mass of institutions and transportation is near the confluence of I-95 and 195. I think actually that will work.
You talking about CSC and Brown and Wexford?
Yeah, the whole thing over the 195 thing.
What do you think about the small riverfront hotel?
I think that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I haven't consulted David Brusson about the design. So maybe the whole thing should be made out of marble, everything, and gold-plated faucets like in Trump Towers.
It was interesting. There are individuals, Bob Burke, who's a neighbor of ours around the corner, wanted to move that 92, the beleaguered 92 Planet Street, the historic house that
18th century, I think.
To bring that down there. I mean, I think some of the arguments made by individuals were, where's the historic preservation here? Is it in the city charter? Can 195 supersede that? But in the end, it looks like the hotel's moving forward.
I think it can. It's a state. 195 is a state thing, for one thing. It's not a city thing.
That is true.
So, so you have to look at the overall good, the likelihood that this thing will succeed. I think it will in a minuscule version, in a way, of the Big Dig, where you have this sort of density of improvements in a relatively small area, the Big Dig, downtown Boston. And there was some waste. There was a little bit of fraud. The whole thing cost $20 billion. Overruns. At the same time, it's been great for Boston. It streamlined it, and Boston's going from strength to strength. Probably because of that.
When they were moving the highways there and shifting 195. I think that the whole purpose of the PR coming in and calling it the I-Way was so people would stop calling it the Little Dig.
Yeah, right. I think you're right. I forgot about that.
No,
that's right.
This is not the Little Dig.
That's right.
So Memorial, we're talking about 195. There's got to be something environmental, and there's got to be something technological.
Yes, environmental and technological thing. It's wonderful that you guys report on seaweed. There's a research program down at Woods Hole to turn seaweed into fuel.
Molly O'Brien's show?
Great. Molly O'Brien, she's a genius. She's a world historical figure. And the great thing about seaweed, you can eat it, and it also can be used for energy. Have you ever had seaweed salad?
I have that. It's
great. Oh, it's wonderful.
Yes.
It's delicious stuff. And so rather than taking a more space on land and dumping fertilizers and, herbicides. Why not grow seaweed?
Sounds like you could run for office on the seaweed ticket.
I'm going to do it. That's great. It's like I've been successful Lake Chafee running for president on the metric ticket.
Bob Whitcomb on the seaweed ticket. If you didn't catch that segment, be sure to check it out. Just Google GoLocal Prov and seaweed and see Molly O'Brien interview one of the foremost experts and innovators in this industry, and it's right here in New England.
It could be. It's one of these things. An old boss of mine told me at the Wall Street Journal, the big story could be at the bottom of page 37, in the fullness of time. If we create a gigantic seaweed industry here, we'll be in clover. It'll be better than the California gold rush, the seaweed rush.
Who needs gambling? We've got seaweed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great stuff.
And on the technological, that kind of encompass both. Are there any other
what's the
items
technological thing? The kind of counter-technological thing. The state of Georgia is getting rid of its electronic voting system and going back to paper ballots because it make it more difficult for the Russians and others to hack.
When was this is
they have this kind of on-screen, electronic vote. That's not safe.
Well, what do you think about that?
We can now stuff the ballots the old-fashioned way.
People have been talking about this for years now, with the proliferation of digital archives and the potential to sort of tweak it. And is there a concern? As you said, paper records, you can still kind of have some funny business with paper.
You can, but nothing. The hacking ability for files of paper cannot compare to your hacking ability to get into the digital base of voters and votes. Obviously, the threat is much, much greater with that.
Well,
we are under huge peril.
I do like how you tacked from being the Kremlin apologist at the outset with Facebook and obviously pointing to the issue at hand of they're trying to sort of come in and disrupt. Because we talked about that last week. Your viewpoint and many experts' viewpoint is Russian intent sort of globally as disruption.
And not just the United States. They tried Germany, France, certainly Eastern Europe, and the Chinese are doing it. And the North Koreans, for a country, an impoverished country, 25 million people, they're really good at it. Just ask Sony.
That was an interesting point in time. Anything else you want to tell folks?
There's a funny book by Paul Theroux, the famous travel writer and novelist and essayist. It's called Motherland. And it's about this sort of angry family living on Cape Cod. And it's a great, great novel about, if slightly redundant, which brings to mind the famous Tolstoy quote, all unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. And it's also a very evocative piece about New England, a certain kind of New England in general, and Cape Cod in particular. So I'll say a few words about that.
So do you recommend if you're like...
I do, I do. It's long, it's it's a doorstopper, but he writes...
But you read it in like 2 nights because you're Bob Whitcomb.
I did. I memorized actually the first 200 pages because it was in Serbo-Croatian, so it's easy to memorize.
Next week, Bob Whitcomb's going to recite the first 200 pages of the Motherland. As always, appreciate your coming in. Okay. I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say about the poll results.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about that soon.
Looking forward to that, and a very, very good pollster.
Great conversation.
One of the best in the country.
It was very insightful. We've got more coming for you here tomorrow. Viewers and GoLocal. So that wraps up another episode here in the GoLocal studio in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We appreciate you tuning in. And we're going to let Bob Whitcomb go. And I'm going to finish by giving my last goodbyes. So we'll be back tomorrow at the 3 o'clock hour with Molly O'Brien for Lifestyle. 4 o'clock will kick off. I will be joined by Josh Fenton talking about the approval ratings for elected officials. But go to GoLocal. If you caught us earlier in the show, you saw some of the poll results, but we're breaking it down to you even further than we did with John Delamope here in the studio. Appreciate him coming down from the K-School. We'll be hearing from him more in the future. Again, this is the benchmark poll. A number of questions will be the baseline to compare future polls against as we move forward towards the 2018 election season. So appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate your feedback. Wish everyone a great Thursday evening. It's been a great week here in studio in GoLocal, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.